Hello. So this
Hello.
is so
That'll grab them.
that's right. We are off to a great start.
Yeah, you got it. Hey, listen, how else would we do it?
Exactly. Exactly. So let's introduce ourselves. I'll go first. I am
Please.
Dennis Feeney, and uh, I have a day job, a lovely wife, great kid, um, and also a uh, bass player, songwriter, and singer, pretty much in that order. Um, Definitely on the singing part. And also a Catholic Christian. And so um, yeah, so that's me. Oh, Joe.
Uh, Joe Zenk. I live just north of Sheboygan, Wisconsin, and so there really is a place called Sheboygan, and we're it, man. And not only are we the broad capital of the world, which of course, why wouldn't we be? Um, we are also called the Malibu of the Midwest. Now that
Hey,
I'll bet you didn't know.
nice.
Because hey, yep, we're right next to a big freaking lake. That's one of five great ones, and there is surfing here. And so why not the Malibu of the Midwest?
Yeah,
Married to Renee, five kids, all out of the house and doing their thing, and proud of each and every one of them. And I too, Catholic Christian. Dennis and I met in Wyoming during our time there. And I've been in ministry for 32 plus years, 33rd year in various forms. I am now a chaplain at a local hospice organization.
awesome.
So
Yeah, yes.
Dennis
So
got us
this,
together to present this idea for this month's or this quarter's
yes.
Ghost in the Machine episode.
Yeah. So this is uh we're doing a special Halloween edition of Ghost in the Machine.
Of course, we are.
Of course. And um, I I really get a kick out of Halloween and always have. Um, and but what Joe and I do is we talk about music, and if you've been watching our previous episodes, you know this.
And if
Um,
you haven't been,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
stop this episode right now and go back and watch the other four because they're
that's
good.
right. They are good. They are good. Yeah, you can binge it. We're
Yeah,
getting to the
yeah.
point where we have enough that I think could qualify as binging. I mean, maybe a
Well, we
light
talk quite
binge,
a bit sometimes.
more of a graze, I think. Um, but we pick a song and then we talk about it. We pick songs that are meaningful to us, and we talk about them from the standpoint of what they mean to us in terms of our lives, and also how they reach us on a musical level and also a spiritual level. And so so I called Joe with this idea of doing a Halloween episode, and he really liked the idea. And I had the idea of I'd like to, um, how do we pick songs that are have a Halloween kind of vibe and also a spiritual kind of bent that, are significant. So one song I thought of is uh, Don't Fear the Reaper by Blue Oyster Cult. Now, one that we've all heard. I mean, this song has been around for decades and have heard it over and over and over again. And the infamous Saturday Night Live skit with Will Ferrell is that is awesome. But it's in, a lot of ways, it's one of those songs that I think when, we've heard it so many times that it, that initial, um, impact of hearing that song, we don't feel it anymore. If you ever did, it may not be a song that you ever really got into. But I was telling Joe that recently, I think it was last year, I was putting up our Halloween decorations. I was outside, I had a pint, and I had the boombox going with a CD called Now That's Halloween Music or something like that. And this I was hanging stuff up, and Don't Fear the Reaper came on. And it was like, I don't know, like the whole thing just kind of came together, and I was um really like listen to the lyrics, listen to the arrangement, and got thinking about it again and how um interesting the lyrics are, from um from all sorts of angles, and how effective the music is. Um, and so that's one of them that we're going to talk about this evening. And then uh, and then the other one is, and this is going to be interesting because usually we will go through lyrics and discuss what they mean to us. The other one I thought of, and I swear, the next one of these we do, Joe, you're picking the song because I think this is two in a row where I've picked the song. So anyway, but the other one is Tubular Bells, and instrumental, of course, but to say it carries a little baggage would be,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. I had no idea Tubular Bells was a 26 minutes long song.
yeah,
And so, I mean, I know the first 30 seconds of it, and the
yes,
hairs on the back of my neck start coming up every time I hear it because of
yes.
said baggage that you're talking about. But it's an amazing song.
It is. It's really cool. And so we're gonna discuss those as entry points into um, Halloween, and then also a deeper discussion about some pretty, I think, the questions that both of those songs raise. The idea of evil in the world, the idea of facing our mortality and our death. Great topics for Halloween. Great topics for two Irishmen enjoying a pint. So,
That's exactly right. Yeah, that is. Yeah.
and so I would like to start us as we usually do with a blessing from John O'Donohue. And this is called Beannachte. On the day when the weight deadens on your shoulders and you stumble, may the clay dance to balance you. And when your eyes freeze behind the gray window and the ghost of loss gets into you, may a flock of colors, indigo, red, green, and azure blue, come to awaken in you a meadow of delight. When the canvas frays in the current of thought and a stain of ocean blackens beneath you, may there come across the waters a path of yellow moonlight to bring you safely home. May the nourishment of the earth be yours. May the clarity of light be yours. May the fluency of the ocean be yours. May the protection of the ancestors be yours. And so may a slow wind work these words of love around you, an invisible cloak to mind your life.
Beautiful.
I love that one.
Yeah.
So, which one do we start with?
I think you start with Don't Fear the Reaper.
Yeah, let's do that.
Well, let me ask this, Dennis. Let me ask this question. So, I mean, it really, yeah, we can still start with Don't Fear the Reaper, but Halloween, you
Yeah,
picked these episodes these songs for this episode specifically.
Yeah.
When you think of Halloween, you said you've always kind of dug Halloween. Why? What is it about Halloween? What does Halloween say to you? What do you think it says to the culture? What are we doing? Why these songs? What are we trying to point toward?
I really enjoy the I love this time of year for starters. And I love that the the changes that are going on.
Agreed.
And the for me, you know, Halloween kind of starts the holiday season in a sense. And you know, because directly after this, then we start, you know, jumping into plans for Thanksgiving and then for Christmas and the new year. But this gives a chance to, I mean, man, sometimes this stuff is hard, you know, it's hard to put into words exactly what it is that, you know, grabs me about it. I really love the like I'm not a real big horror movie buff, you know? I mean, and so I think I really like the more I don't know, like childlike stuff about it, you know? Which with as our daughter was growing up, we got to um experience all again, you know, again, which was great. Um, but I also do love um a good, you know, a good fright, a good chill up my spine. And yeah, you know, and that um like the bumping up against darkness,
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I like your phrasing there.
you know, the bumping up against darkness where, you know, it's kind of at a safe, keeping a safe distance from it in a
Well, it's
sense.
making fun of it in a sense.
And it is. Yeah, it is. And I don't know if when um I mean people I think Halloween got its start from the Celtic culture, right?
It's the Celts. Yep.
Yeah,
It's our people.
yeah, yes. And you know, whether I'm not exactly sure, I haven't done a lot of research. I probably should since we're sitting here talking about it. But you know, like how did they take it a lot more seriously than this, you know, or was it like a pretty much a harvest festival, you know,
So
which in a sense it kind of is also.
my recollection, and I did not do any study either here beforehand, was it was taking the pagan and the Christian and
Mhm.
trying to combine them into a holiday because, of course, the day after is November 1st, All Saints Day. And so they are dressing up and firing up jack-o'-lanterns and things like that to scare away and spook away all the evil and the demons and everything, you know, to make way for the purity
Yeah.
of the following day. And so again, it is taking their pagan, and I mean that not in a divisive or a poor
Oh
way,
yeah.
being
Sure.
country folk idea, a rural
Yeah.
agrarian spirituality,
Mhm.
and combining that into what the newer Christian ideas that were brought to them through Patrick and the monks afterward, and kind of melded them into this festival the night before, a holy day for the Christian
Nice.
calendar.
Nice. And
So it was a direct
so
confrontation to
yeah,
evil, and it was, as you say, it was bumping up against darkness, but it was a naming of a reality as well.
yeah. Well, and that's interesting because, the days are getting shorter,
Yep,
night is getting longer.
yep.
Um, and I don't think that is not as significant to us in this day and age as it
Because
was
we have
back then.
electric lights. Yeah. Yep.
You know, I mean, lights are everywhere
Yep.
if you're in a city, of course. Um, and so, but back then, I mean, if anybody, we've all gone camping. Um, and it is a different experience, especially when um, the dark comes and it's time to go into the tent and the fire dies down and all of a sudden it's this is this is very dark. um, yeah. So how about you?
Halloween never really was a big holiday for me. Never really paid much attention other than when I was a kid, of course.
Yeah,
And so um, when it comes around these days, it's a non-entity for me, really is just,
yeah,
but I know a lot of people do like to, in a sense, make fun of it or go to haunted houses or watch certain
yeah.
movies and things like that. That's never been my genre. Um,
Wow. Yeah.
but I'm into the things like, yeah, do I want to talk about Don't Fear the Reaper or do I want to uh talk about The Exorcist a little bit? I'm in, man. I'm in. So take it away. Like this is enough, foreplay for the people. Let's dive
Yeah,
into
yeah,
the
exactly.
good stuff.
All right. So what we do on this show is we just kind of take verse by verse, talk about it a little bit. I think we'll move through it a little bit more quickly because we do
Yeah, I
want to
think we're
get
gonna
to,
have to. Yep.
yeah, yeah. And if we find stuff in here that leads us into the other one, um, yeah, let's go there. We don't have to, be totally linear about it. I'll start with the first verse. All our times have come here, but now they're gone. Seasons don't fear the reaper, nor do the wind, the sun, or the rain. We can be like they are. Come on, baby. Don't fear the reaper.
Can I just
Um,
cut in here for a moment
yeah,
and
yes,
just say, I mean, I hear you saying the words, and I'm like, I just want to hear the riff on the guitar behind it. And I want to hear the dude singing it because he is so flipping good. And
yes,
this song is so, it is honestly, it is one of the 100 greatest rock songs ever written, in my opinion.
yeah.
It is that good.
Oh, yeah,
And while it scared me for many years, and I'll talk about that later, but um, it is such a beautifully not only written song lyrically but
mhm,
musically,
yes.
and I just that riff is one of the greatest riffs.
Oh, it is. It,
Yep,
it's it's like the minute you hear it, you know what
yep,
song it is.
yep, yep.
Like Tubular Bells.
Yes, like Tubular Bells. That's
And
exactly
it,
right. They are distinctive, which is beautiful.
they are distinctive and they're similar in that they're arpeggiated minor chords.
I have no idea, but I trust you on that, my friend.
The da 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 da
Yep,
da
yep,
da,
yep.
and then tubular bells, da 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 da. They're both these um syncopated
Yeah,
notes moving
yeah,
about the scale
yeah.
and in such a way, in such a pattern that yeah, they just get inside you, and
They do. That's
yeah,
a great way to put it, Dennis. They get inside you. And which well done. I think that's probably as important as anything they're well, since Tubular Bells doesn't have any lyrics, but anything that BLC is trying to say in
yeah,
the song is the music says it as well, beautifully.
yes,
Even to
yeah,
the point in the middle of the song when they bring it all down,
yes,
just to
I
like,
love that.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's fantastic. Yep.
yeah,
It really
to
is.
me, yeah,
It's a great song.
yeah. Like for me, I was telling Heather, we were listening to it and talking about it. And that part where they bring it down in the middle, that could have gone on longer for me.
Yeah.
I mean, but then Oyster Cult is not a prog band.
Or Colburn.
If
I
they
mean, it's
were,
just
it would be that would be its own part. That would be its own song. Um, but yeah, I love that part. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
yeah, it's fantastic. So
And
okay,
so
anyway,
yeah,
yep.
yeah,
Back to the words you're saying, please.
sure. Baby, take my hand. Don't fear the Reaper. We'll be able to fly. Don't fear the Reaper. Baby, I'm your man. Lots of
La
use
la
of the word
la
baby.
la la.
Yeah. Lots
And
of
of
the word of
course,
the use baby.
for those who don't know the song, obviously the Reaper they're talking about
Oh
is the
yeah.
Grim Reaper.
Yeah.
It is death.
It is
That's,
done.
and I'm sure everybody knows that, but
Yeah,
just to close that loop.
sure. And I really love that first verse is so catching and striking. All our times have come
Mhm,
here, but now they're gone.
mhm.
Seasons don't fear the reaper, nor do the wind, the sun, or the rain.
Mhm.
You know, um, it's because those things, they are, well, the seasons, they mark time. The wind, the sun, the rain, nature, um, mark time and the passage of time, but they're also outside of time in a way. And, very in tune with the cycle of um, birth, growth, and death,
Amen.
right?
Totally.
And yeah, and I think maybe our, as you were saying, our ancestors
Mhm.
were probably, I don't know. I mean, I can only speculate, but maybe had a different relationship with that cycle as well.
I don't know how they couldn't have. I think
Yeah,
in our technology, we take ourselves out of it.
yeah,
But again, I'll use the word pagan in the best sense of that word. Our
yeah,
agrarian and rural and nature loving um, ancestors would have had to work within that cycle because we are all a part of that cycle.
yeah.
The only extent that we're not is that we can avoid it or we can ignore it, but it doesn't ignore us. I mean,
That's
we are a part of it, but we'll try to
yeah,
avoid that idea. And
yeah,
I like that. I really I think that first verse is terrific too. It might be my favorite verse.
yeah,
Um, because again, yes, all our times have come, meaning that there's no getting around it. Father time, as it were, is undefeated. That death comes for us all. It
yeah,
and supposedly when Buck was writing this, he said that he was a 28-year-old, had a heart arrhythmia, and was worried that said, "Hey, maybe I'm going to die, and if I do die, what happens to the love that I have with my I don't think they were, fiancés or whatever. But what happens to the love that I've shared with this woman at my side or the others in my
yes,
life?" And so he was asking these questions and saying, "Listen, it's all comes for us at some point." And I like your point, Dennis, about you know seasons. It's that exact cycle of birth, growth, decay, death, and rebirth. We live
yeah,
it every year. We live it every day with the sun and the moon, with
yeah,
night and day. We live it every, with the rain and the fields and the harvest and the day. It's everywhere. It's part of life with the seasons. And it's saying we don't have to be afraid of it either. We're a part of that very cycle. Why are we trying
yeah,
to avoid this conversation?
yeah, yeah. When you said that technology can, kind of takes us out of, helps us kind of remove ourselves from that cycle and aging and, trying to stay young and, there's that youth. Uh, um, and I think back in the day, um, our ancestors, they didn't have all the stuff that we have today to help us, live a longer life and to look younger and, all that kind of stuff. Um, but Uh, I really I like it when um my rock and roll heroes, when they don't dye their hair black, when they allow themselves, to go gray and they've got wrinkles and um, that is, that's inspiring to me, as I get older.
Well, and I wouldn't even
Um,
limit it to rock and roll heroes, Dennis.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, I mean, to people to be authentic to
yeah,
what is the reality, because it means I'm not trying to
yeah,
deny
yeah.
who I am or what I am. It doesn't mean I've got a foot in the grave and I'm going to give up life at this point already, but it's saying, but this carries its own blessing at this age, and this is who I am and what I am.
Hmm. I like that, that this carries its own blessing. Hmm. I like that a lot. I hadn't thought about that. What
Shall
do
we
you
go
think?
on to the
Yeah,
next
yeah,
verse?
yeah, yeah, let's do that. But but you're right. Yeah. There are, there are blessings to be found in getting older. There are quite a few actually.
There are a lot.
There are a lot.
Our culture doesn't embrace them,
Mhm.
but our culture is dysfunctional in that sense as well.
Yeah,
Um, yeah,
yeah.
there's a lot of beauty and goodness there.
You want to take the next verse?
Sure.
Yeah,
So middle
Valentine.
verse,
Yeah,
before the song kind of draws in on itself and then the guitar solo and things. Valentine is done. Here, but now they're gone. Romeo and Juliet are together in eternity. Romeo and Juliet. 40,000 men and women every day. 40,000 men and women every day. Another 40,000 coming every day. We can be like they are. Come on, baby. Don't fear the reaper. Baby, take my hand. We'll be able to fly. Baby, I'm your man. Um, again, so I don't want to say, listen, this is what Buck is trying to tell us, but uh, how it speaks to me, and again, the research I've done. I told you I was afraid of this song for many years,
yeah.
um, because I've heard, again, I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, where there were all kinds of groups trying to tell you, don't listen to this song, don't listen to this type of music,
Yes,
because
yes,
whether it's the, Satan scare or the, rock
yeah,
music, it will, you're going to be going into the drug culture and you're going to hell, whatever it all is.
yeah.
Everybody had some. And when you're a 10-year-old kid, a 15-year-old kid, this song came out when I was 11. It's like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be listening to this song. And the word that they were talking about was this song was about suicide. It's suicide pact. That's what it's inviting us to. And I'm
Hmm.
like, for years, I believed that.
Yeah.
um, and I don't know anybody, well, a lot of people out there who would say, hey, yeah, this is great because it's about suicide pact. There's a real big pro group out there, saying that. But Buck himself said, no, that's not what I wrote about it at all. He said, I get it. When I used the term Romeo and Juliet, he even said at one point, I wish I wouldn't have used that example. That's not what I meant. Because he was talking about, will that love exist on the other side of death? That's what he's trying to
Ah,
talk about there. And even at the beginning
yeah,
where he says, Valentine is done, here, but now they're gone, that love, earthly love, as we know it, is transitory, but that
yeah,
love is stronger than death, is what he's trying to say, and that love waits for us on the other side.
yeah.
And once I read about that, and
Oh
once I'm like,
man.
that's what
Yeah,
he's trying to say. He's not trying to do this fear mongering or saying, hey, everybody, let's, try to, you know, create this thing like Romeo and Juliet did, and let's both off ourselves, and this will be great, and we don't need to fear death. That's he said he would be far more horrified about that if the song was used in that way. He's trying to use it the exact opposite way, which is we don't need to fear death because it doesn't stop us or disconnect us from love. And I listen, I don't know Buck at all, but I'm guessing he doesn't probably have a lot of Christian roots, with a name like Buck Dharma. but he's not wrong. I don't think in what he's saying.
No.
I think we would say as Catholic Christians, you know, St. Francis of Assisi said famously, I give you praise, Father, for your sister death, and I welcome her. And I'm saying that very poorly.
Sure.
But he talked about sister death as somebody that he welcomes at the end of life, because that is a part of life. Death is. If one of the greatest saints who ever lived can say that, I think we can see this artist saying something similar and saying, why all the uproar here? That
Yeah.
we don't need to be afraid of death. He's not actively inviting us to pursue it. He's saying,
Yeah.
well, let's live well in the midst of this. But
Yeah.
that love that we know between our spouses, between our children, between our parents, between our friends, whatever love we have on this earth is transitory, but it is not broken through death. And every Catholic who I know better say yes to that and agree with it, because that's the very meaning of Easter, isn't it? Because if it's not, I don't know that I understand it.
Yeah. It's exactly right. It's exactly right. Hmm.
So sorry, I
Nice.
was on my pedestal there for a while. What
No,
does
I
that
like
say
it.
to you, Dennis? What
I think
thoughts?
you're exactly right. I think you're exactly right. Um, and yeah, that's fascinating because I hadn't actually heard that, but I had never heard, and you mentioned that like when I called you and we were talking about this song, and you mentioned it was, that suicide pact idea, and I was like, wow, yeah, I guess that kind of is, and I'd never thought of the song in that way, and so I'm really glad that that isn't the way he intended it. I think the way what he how he intended it and how you're talking about it is a much richer um, way to uh, take this song.
Yeah. Well, and again, toward the end of the verse that we just read, 40,000 men and women every day. And he repeats it twice and even repeats it in a sense a third time, another 40,000 coming every day. That he's saying,
Is that
listen,
the idea
yeah,
that many people are dying every day
yeah,
or
that was
something like
his
that?
guess. He said he pulled that number out of a hat, and it
Sure.
turned out he was 100,000 less. I mean, that or under that, it's 140,000 at the time when he wrote it every
Yeah.
day. But he's just basically saying, listen, death is going to come. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. We
Yeah.
can't avoid it, nor should we avoid talking about it or the reality of it.
Yeah.
And so really he's holding it up in our face and saying, death is coming. I mean, he even uses that line how many times? Here, but now they're gone. If 3 times
Yeah.
already we've heard that line.
Yep.
Um,
And we're going to hear it again.
and we're going to hear it again that it's coming for us. So we can either avoid it, we can either make fun of it or try to pretend it's not there, or we can say, what does that mean?
Yeah.
How does that invite me to live well?
Yes.
And what fears do I carry with me? That death, what does death hold?
Yeah.
What fears are there?
Yeah. Which will lead us into our next discussion.
Hey man, one of us here is brave enough to read the book, and it ain't me.
I'm reading it very, very short amounts and during the daytime.
Yeah,
And then
during the day.
and then I try to watch the Snoopy show in between that when I read it and when I go to bed. All right. Love of two is one. Here, but now they're gone. Came the last night of sadness, and it was clear she couldn't go on. Then the door was open, and the wind appeared. The candles blew, and then disappeared. The curtains flew, and then he appeared, saying, "Don't be afraid. Come on, baby." And she had no fear, and she ran to him. Then they started to fly. They looked backward and said goodbye. She had become like they are. She had taken his hand. She had become like they are. Come on, baby. Don't fear the reaper. Man, there's a lot there.
There's a lot there.
Um, I love that. Love of two is one.
Yeah, I agree. It's a great line.
That idea of when you love another person, your spouse, you know, you become you become one. Um, here, but now they're gone. Um, that's interesting there. Um, which kind of gets back to that, like the Romeo and Juliet kind of idea, or I mean, we're here and then we're gone. I mean, um, came the last night of sadness, and it was clear she couldn't go on. Then the door was opened and the wind appeared, the candles blew and disappeared. Um, so what I'm getting from this verse is the person's passing from this life into the next.
The death. It's the death
Yeah,
sentence.
yeah. And I remember what I was going to say. John O'Donohue, he was talking about how death erases us utterly from the world. I mean, there are pictures, there, letters, recordings, uh, we leave that kind of stuff behind. But experiences, memories of the people who knew us, but we're freaking gone. You know? And
There's a finality there, and that can be
yeah,
scary. Yep.
yeah, yep,
I mean, that's the mortality. Like, I'm,
yes,
yeah, that's a scary thing.
yeah. Um, but I love the curtains flew and then he appeared saying, "Don't be afraid. Come on, baby." And she had no fear and she ran to him. They started to fly, looked back and said goodbye. So to me, what that says is when that moment comes, I don't think it's something we have to be afraid of. You know,
Yeah.
I think the transition will be um, like all of our transitions in life, right? Um, it happens. And it's kind of like when a train is coming and it's getting louder and louder and louder, and then it passes by, and then the sound is, that loud initial sound is gone. Um, I I think that's kind of somewhat analogous, that I don't know.
If I can use a maybe more, I don't know, from the sublime to the ridiculous, I guess.
I'm gonna
But
second one of these for our discussion. So you're
there
gonna
you
hear it
go.
open.
But in the Harry Potter series,
Oh, yeah.
um, that J.K. Rowling, who by the way, I think wrote it brilliantly, but in the last book, she uses a parable as they tell the story of the Deathly Hallows.
I love that. And the
And
animation. Yeah.
yeah, and she
That was
talks
cool.
about the resurrection stone and the all powerful wand and the invisibility cloak, and only when the gentleman had all three did he finally, at the end of his life, give them all up, and death came for him, and they departed as equals, or they departed as friends in that parable. And it really is like that's beautiful. Again,
Yeah.
what she's saying there is what they're saying in this song. Not necessarily that the departing is equals, death is death, but they're departing as friends, or as Francis would say, welcome, sister death, that
Yeah.
you are a part of this too, and that we are brother and sister to each other.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's an attitude.
Yeah.
It's one that says, we don't need to be afraid. We don't need to be
Yeah.
afraid because the
Yeah.
love, and he says that in the first one, love of two is one. That love doesn't end. Love doesn't end. I told you, you especially who are new, I'm in hospice work. And whether people are carry a faith tradition with them or not, what I'll try to remind them anyway is, listen, you're surrounded by love right here, and you're going from love to love. That love awaits you. And I don't know what that looks like, but it awaits you on the other side, and you don't need to be afraid. And it's okay to take, I often use that imagery. I don't use the BOC song, but I'm like, when that hand is extended in invitation, it's okay to take it and go and trust it, because love awaits. And so really, it's like that's what's playing out now. Is he's using imagery just the same way that Francis is using imagery, or that J.K.
Yeah.
Rollins is using imagery. Why is one better than the other? They're inviting us to the same place.
Yeah. That's like, I've got this prayer that was read that we had at my dad's funeral, and it's called Immortality. And it kind of ties this back to the opening verse about the seasons. Do not stand by my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I am a thousand winds that blow. I am a diamond glint on snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. When you awake in the morning hush, I am the swift upflinging rush of quiet birds in circling flight. I am the soft star shine at night. Do not stand by my grave and cry. I am not there. I am not there. I did not die. I live with the risen Lord.
Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful?
So beautiful. So and so true, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. And it ties us to, like, um, to this world and also the next, you know?
Because there's a continuity there, Dennis.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
no separation. There's just a veil that we
Yeah.
walk through. As our Celts would call it, a thin place, a thin
Yeah.
veil.
Yeah. So
How do you transition, my friend?
I that veil between this world and the next, and the evil that exists in this world, and we can't there it you know um so Tubular Bells, he didn't write that as this was not a song that he was commissioned to write for this film. um this isn't he made the album somehow. William Friedkin, the director, he had commissioned a score, and the composer delivered the score. William Friedkin did not like it. He threw it out, and then he just started like collecting songs or pieces of music, like classical music or something, to fit into the different parts of the movie, because he just couldn't find like an original score that he liked. And so he was looking for a song that would kind of bookend the movie. And his assistant brought him in a stack of albums, you know, a big stack of albums. And he said, I put one on, I dropped the needle on the first track. I would listen for a few seconds. Nope. And he kept doing that. Nope, nope, this is not it. And he was getting more and more frustrated. And then he got to this one album that was like a test pressing. So this album was brand spanking new. And it was a blank cover. He said he put it on the turntable, and that music started, and he was like, that's it. That's the one. Now, as a songwriter, that's about as close to winning the freaking lottery. I mean, first of all, I mean, when the person hears the song, they have to like it, right? So it has to be good. But there is such, and I'm not saying this, I'm just saying this strictly from like from like a songwriter's perspective on that, and there's nothing supernatural about it, but there is there's that luck, there's that chance, there's that, something. And yeah, fascinating. Great story. Great story.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, man, this music is just, and I heard, let me see how much time we got left here. Um, how are we doing on time? Do you have the,
I I don't know exactly. I think we started about 55 minutes ago is my guess.
so, uh, yeah, the, that music, that pattern of notes, um, Michael Oldfield said that he had the notes and he would, he'd play it in that pattern and then he would try and do a variation on it. And he said it just didn't work, it's like if they're arranged in that order, he said musically it really works. You kind of start to monkey with it and it doesn't have the same impact. So it's fascinating. Um, but so it does carry the baggage of the film. Um, and I think that's the terrifying thing about this movie is the um, end of this book is like a good first part of it. We're just being introduced to these people's lives, and they're quite. I mean, the main character is an actress, so it's not an ordinary life, right? But
But it is. I
but
mean,
behind the scenes, right?
yeah,
Behind the scenes.
yeah.
We see more of her behind the scenes and her family than we do when she's like that bit when she's on camera, and they're making the film at Georgetown University. That's that's a very small part of it. And it sets up, like the idea of how evil comes to us, in our ordinary lives. And again, like you were saying, I mean, a lot of times there's no avoiding it. I don't know. What do you think?
So, Dennis, you're asking a question, one that's an amazingly good question, and two, it's one that you and I are not going to answer no matter how long this podcast goes. The presence of evil is a reality in this world, and it's an injustice, and it's I mean, as we sit here on Thursday, we're recording this on Thursday, October the 10th. We're not in Florida. If we're in Florida right now, we wouldn't have the electricity to do that, with a second hurricane in 2 weeks going through there
Yeah.
and just the disaster. And I mean, that's evil, even though it wasn't perpetrated by humanity. But we don't have to go very far for that. We can go over to the Middle East for that, or we go to Ukraine, or we go to Sudan, or we go to, Myanmar, or wherever we want to go, or the division that is within our country right now as we approach election season. And I mean, evil shows itself everywhere, and it's a dividing. It's not something that brings us closer together. It's something that divides,
Yeah.
and uh, and and sometimes it's visited upon us through means like hurricanes and natural disasters. Sometimes it's visited upon us um, through illnesses or separations or deaths in our family or divorces that we didn't see coming or whatever it is. I mean, it's a reality that we cannot escape in this world. And all of us have to come to grips with. I mean, we're all going to ask the question, why?
Yeah.
Why? Why does a good God, if there is such a God, why does evil exist? And we have to somehow come to an understanding, as limited as it is, because our understandings are always going to be limited when we're approaching something larger than us like this. Why does it exist? Why does a good God allow that to happen? and how do we make sense of evil in this world? And
Yeah.
really, that's why movies like The Exorcist or books or things like that, it's why some of the books in scripture would exist.
Yeah.
I think that's the whole point of the book of Job in scripture is
Yeah.
saying, how do we deal with the problem of evil?
Mhm. Mhm.
What goes on here?
Yeah.
Um, so those are healthy questions to ask, Dennis.
Yeah. And he starts the book with the following passage. And as Jesus stepped ashore, there met him a man from the city who was possessed by demons.
Yeah.
Many times they had laid hold of him, and he was bound with chains, but he would break the bonds asunder. And Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" And he answered, "Legion, for we are many."
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
Well, and I think what that's getting at is like what you were saying about natural disasters, sickness, there are legions of ways that, you know, uh, bad stuff happens. It doesn't have to be as um, literal and visceral as what happens in the film.
It's a great way to put it, Dennis. Visceral. I go back to a quote when Adolf Eichmann was on trial um, for crimes against humanity, against what he did, for what he did in the Nazi regime. And one gal, and I don't remember her name, I wish I did, but she used the term the banality of evil. And I love that idea because evil doesn't look visceral. I love that term you used. In the movie, it's almost comedic, that
Yeah,
she's spewing green things, her face becomes ashen, her head is turning around, she's got scars, she's doing floating. I think any one of us, if we meet anybody like that, knows that's evil. There's a problem. The
there's a
problem is
problem. There's a problem.
evil looks so much more mundane and
Mhm.
banal that we participate in it, unfortunately, or we enable it, or we walk by it and don't recognize it or name it for what it is. And it's everywhere around us, as simple as from the gossip that we listen to on the television or that we talk about at our workplace about someone else. That's what evil looks like. And how do we participate in it, in those things that undermine and divide and cause hurt and damage at some level? Um, you know,
And
we
it can
may
be a
not ever
very,
murder somebody in our life, but we sure can murder them with our thoughts, our actions, our words.
Mhm. Yep, exactly. That kind of stuff can hurt deeply and stay with you a long time.
Yep, yep. So how, Dennis, this is a question I'll throw to you. Um, how do we deal with the presence of evil in our world? What again, I mentioned earlier, all of us have to kind of come to grips with that question of why and come up with an answer that satisfies us. Um, oh, what, how do you come to grips with it and come to terms with it, as it were, and make friends with it, if I can use that analogy?
Yeah. Well, I think like going back to the that opening blessing from John O'Donohue, um, he talks about for instance, on the day when the weight deadens on your shoulders and you stumble, may the clay dance to balance you. Um, when the canvas frays and a stain of ocean blackens beneath you, may there come across the waters a path of yellow moonlight to bring you safely home. This idea of, I think in the deepest darkness, we we can find a light. And it may be, just like a speck of light, but grab onto that and follow that and let that navigate your life, you know,
Right.
out of whatever evil it is you're encountering, you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Because I think that light is what I mean, it's the Holy Spirit, you know, guiding us through the dark times in our lives that come to all of us.
So I used to lead retreats when I was out in Wyoming, where Dennis and I met. I used to lead
Yeah.
a number of retreats every year. One of the exercises the priest would have the retreatants do is we all had a candle in our hand, and he would turn the lights out, and then one by one, he'd say, "Okay, all the men in the room blow their candle out. All the women under the age of whatever, blow your candle out." Ultimately, he got it down to just one person had a candle on in all the darkness. And he said, all the darkness in this world cannot put out that light. And I love that image that you're getting to, Dennis, that even in the midst of the evil that is present in our world, that is around us, and sometimes we participate in, that all that darkness cannot put out that light, which is goodness, which is life, which is love, which is, as I would agree with you, the Holy Spirit. It can't, because it's not more powerful. I mean, and BOC, I think, was saying that too.
That's
They're
exactly
like,
right. I was just thinking that. Yep.
it doesn't have the power over that.
Yeah.
And that's, if I can throw my 2 cents in, that's where I
Please.
come to grips with evil too, is to say, you know, Harold Kushner wrote a wonderful book, When Bad Things Happen to Good People. And it's an easy read, but he's asking this question. And he struggles with the idea of, okay, we all believe that God is all powerful, but we also believe that God is all good. And he says, I can't make sense of those coming together. Either God is all powerful or God is all good. But if they were both the same, then can God really be God and be a good God? If he's allowing it to happen, and his idea is that God is not all powerful, but that God is all good, and God allows evil to happen, but will send us the grace in God's goodness for us to walk through it and to overcome it, which I love that image. And I would agree with his conclusion of the two. It'd be far more important to me that God is all good than God is all powerful. But I like the image, and I think Richard Rohr said this, that God doesn't allow anything, any evil to happen in this world that God cannot redeem and make new. That God only allows, he doesn't do the evil, he doesn't perpetrate the evil. And I think that's an important point. A lot of people say, God must want, I got this cancer, so God must want me to, he's testing me. I'm like, I don't agree with that at all. I don't think God's giving us cancer or sending this hurricane or doing any of those things.
Yeah.
Creation has fallen, but God gives us the grace to move through it. And nothing happens to us that God cannot redeem and make new on the other side of it. And that good cannot come from it, because if good can come from some person dying on a cross 2,000 years ago, the worst thing that could ever happen in humanity could cause the best thing that ever happened in humanity, those 3 days later.
Yeah.
That God can take whatever evil is happening within my life and our world and make good come of it. That God can redeem that. And I'm going to have to trust that, even if I don't understand it. And it sucks.
Yeah. 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 Hmm. Ah, that's awesome.
I don't know if it's correct. I believe it to be, but
I believe it is too.
it's bigger than we are, and I don't pretend to know the answer.
Yeah. Yeah. The idea of participating in it in subtle ways. That's something I want to be on the lookout for. Because I think that's a slippery slope. you know, from personal experience, you know, one one action leads to another, you
Or
know.
one inaction leads to another and another.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, exactly. Hmm.
So I'm sure we're getting closer toward the end. I want to
Yeah.
um, talk about this. I don't know if you are a Knight of Columbus or not. Years and years ago, when I was out in Wyoming with you, I joined the Knights of Columbus, and I have not been active since. It's just I have too much in my on my plate, and that's just a Catholic fraternity of men. And when you get initiated in on the first day, there is this saying that they invite you to remember, and it is, of course, in Latin, because why not? Tempus fugit, memento mori. Tempus fugit, memento mori, which ultimately means time flies, remember death. And again, I like that image. They're not wrong. Time does fly, and the death does not, even in a culture that avoids death, avoids talking about it, that will pretend it's not there. And trust me, I see it all the time. Um, that it's okay to have in front of us, because in one sense, uh, to remember death invites us not to be afraid of it, but to say, how do I live well with the time that I have? And again, I think that's exactly what BOC is inviting us to in the song
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's saying, listen, death and evil are a reality in it. Let's not make friends with evil. That's not okay. We need to fight against that.
Yeah.
But death is that is part of that reality. So how do we remember that to help us live well and even maybe actively fight against those demons of our age? Not just ones that get inside of us that make our heads spin, but a demon that may be called sexism or racism or homophobia or militarism or whatever it is that we're going to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. Right on. Hmm. Great discussion, man.
They always are, man. And just coming from two songs. So here's the deal, people. If you're still with us an hour in, when you are done, you got to listen to Don't Fear the Reaper and you got to listen to
Yeah.
Tubular Bells. And
Yeah.
because they're just so good. You don't have to
There's
listen
a
to all 26 minutes of Tubular Bells, but you
no.
got to.
There's like a short version, a single version
Oh,
on
is that right?
iTunes. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like the Reader's Digest version, the condensed. But yeah, it is amazing, amazing music. Um, yeah. And The Exorcist, I mean, the girl survives. The priests are able to cast out the demons. Sorry, spoiler alert. Uh, um, but it comes at the cost of, both of their lives
Yes. Yep.
and and so the fight against evil is something that we will do. Um, and both of those priests go into that for their own reasons, reluctantly,
Yeah.
but they give their lives in the fight for evil and or fight of fighting fighting
Yes.
evil. Um, and I think it just shows that it's something we have to do. It'd be something we do to the day we die.
And that giving of our lives doesn't necessarily mean death like it did for the two priests in the film, but it may mean death
Throwing yourself
to,
out the window and
yes,
bouncing
right,
down
right.
those stairs towards
Yeah,
M
yeah,
Street in Georgetown.
yeah. But it may mean death to whatever agenda or hopes or visions or dreams or control or whatever that we had.
Yeah.
But again, seasons change, and the the whole cycle that Dennis you mentioned, life and growth and decay and death, just leads to life again. Um,
Yeah.
even in the midst of this fight and giving of ourselves and our lives against whatever evil that we choose to fight against.
Right on. Well, can you take us out with a prayer?
How about we just know that we are in the presence of that good God that is here and wherever it is that you are listening to this. And so we pray, loving God, we thank you for the gift of this moment and the gift of this day. It is a gift, and our days are numbered, and you know what that is. Help us to live well in the midst of that. So when death does come for us, Lord, we can um, walk with it as friend and as sister, and take its hand. Help us, Lord, to fight actively against those evils, those demons of our age, and give us the courage and the strength to see them, to name them, and to stand against them, even if it may cost us whatever life or idea of that life we have. Bless all those who are listening to this and watching this, and bless Dennis for the
Ah,
creation of this. And we thank you for all of it. Amen.
amen. And thank you.
Yeah, happy to be a part of it. Thank you,
Right
my
on.
friends. Come back
Yes,
again or watch our old episodes if you haven't.
that's right.
They're good.
They are good. And until next time, we'll be talking to you soon. And yeah, shoot, send us a note in the chat. And if there's a song that you'd like us to delve into, let us know.
We'll take a look at her.
Because I'm gonna stop suggesting songs for
No,
at
these
least
are
the
good
next
ones, Dennis.
few
These are good
episodes
ones, brother.
because so right on. All right.
All right. Take care, my friend.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.